Isaak Mukonyezi from Uganda Technology and Management University. I did mining data from Twitter. And this in particular was during the presidential elections. That's last year in 2016. And basically, all the work that was gotten from a hashtag Uganda Decides. And so we're going to get into it. Twitter is very interesting to do some research because, first of all, by far it's the most open platform that you can be able to collect data from. Facebook restricts its data, so Twitter will give you a better. And so what happens is that, first of all, big data can be described by 3 terms. Velocity, that means this data is coming at a very high speed. Variety is coming in all kinds of forms, and volume is really coming in a lot of data. So having all of this data out there won't make as much sense unless you can be able to harvest it and then do some processing on it and then get some interesting insights from it. So you can be able to do this through the Twitter API. You can create an account where you can be able to start collecting this data. There are a little bit of restrictions when it comes to collecting data from Twitter. That means you cannot be able to access data that's beyond 7 days, the past 7 days. And also the time that it takes for you to pull data you're restricted to about 200 tweets every 15 minutes. So there's also that restriction. Or if you have money, you can be able to, there are some service providers which provide access to the Twitter Firehouse. That means you can be able to access as much data back in the day, but it's really expensive. So if you want to collect data from Twitter, you start early, you prepare, so you're getting it as it streams in. Okay, so the kind of things that you can do with this data, you're basically going to do text processing. So 2 things, statistical analysis, where you can be able to quantify data and summarize it, and then content analysis. That's why you identify structural elements of the data, and then you extract, and then you codify some meaning, and also reducing the dimensions of the text data, because it comes with a lot of noise, so it's not very easy for you to get features from this data. Okay, that's a sample of a tweet, how a tweet appears. And every tweet has a retweet count and a like or favorite count. So, yeah, I'll continue. So, the statistical, the content analysis that you can be able to do are things like term frequency. You want to know how many times was this term mentioned. Term proximity, you want to know these terms, how close were they either to the positive sense or negative sense. Term concurrences, you want to know how, which terms were seen to collected about 61,000 pre-election day, as the day before 23,000. So these, you're seeing original. This was including the retweets. So these ones here are just the original tweets which are sent for the election day. So I'm trying to see it's kind of statistics. 48% of them were retweeted, whereas 26% of them were, 11% was favorited but not retweeted, and 15% was not favorited but was retweeted, things like that. So it's just giving a brief summary of the data that was collected on the election day and so on for the pre-election day. So I know you may not be able to see a little bit. Now, during the day of the election, we're trying to now visualize how much tweets were being sent per hour. And so we see between morning, that was maybe around 6 till about midday, there was a lot of tweets. Actually, it was before 7, the day before the election day, they switched off the internet, so people, the internet was switched off due to our friends from government, due to a security risk. So people are trying their way, trying VPNs, so you'll see some interesting things ahead, but then later people got to understand VPNs and then they got back to the business of tweeting. So there was a little bit of an inconvenience of people sharing their ideas over Twitter. And so we can also look at who are the top contributors, who are the people driving interaction. And again, you may not be able to see, but at the bottom there, that's the wife of the main opposition candidate, Dr. Kiza Besigye's wife, that's Winnie Byanyuma, and she drove a lot of engagement. Either she was supporting her husband, or was it against the government? We don't know. And then comes in the other media houses. So this is sort of interesting to see who, again, this is just summarizing, see who has contributed a lot and who's driving interaction on the platform. So. Then you can also do things like sentiment. You want to know in this entire data set that you've collected, what's the mood? What was the mood? And especially for this period, what was the mood? So want to see, was there fear? Was there trust? Was there anticipation? So you can this in both positive or negative. Or you can be able to split these two into these other 8 features. That's trust, anticipation, and so on. So then also, this is just a summary of the entire data, because the tweets are so many, and getting through all of them might be a very big task. But if we summarize it like in a tag cloud, you can be able to see, according to the size of the text that you're seeing there, according to the size of the words, that shows you what were people talking about. And you see interesting things like Besigye, leopard. Leopard is an interesting word in Uganda. Yeah, it's another name for our president, Museveni. Peace, but the Electoral Commission asked EC, VPN, you're seeing VPN down there, and then you're seeing Kigundu, who's the former Electoral Commission chairman, and so many other things. So you can be able to see what are people talking about in terms of the size of the text. Then, somatic orientation, because you want to know how close were different terms to the positive and negative. So there is, you can be able to find out how was the word used close to the positive, and how was the same word used to the negative side, and then you can be able to get a difference of that, and then you can be able to know whether it was used mostly to the positive or to the negative sense. So right here, just looking at these 2 days, the election day and the pre-election day. So, for example, we'll look at the election day in the interest of time. So, polling and station was used more, was frequently the most seen together in the data, appeared about 1,012 times, and it was being used in a negative sense. When you look at the entire column of SO, that is semantic orientation, that's what shows you whether it's being used in the positive or negative sense. So as the number goes up, That's the extent of the negativity. And as the number goes down, the negative goes down, the closer to the positive side. So most of it was negative. Negative sense. So either people are complaining about social media being blocked, people are complaining about the voting material appearing later at the polling stations, ballot papers disappearing or appearing pre-ticked. Election in Uganda was not very interesting. People were at the voting station late. People are voting in the PM, you see, voting PM. So some of the voting. The other thing that you should know that most of this data, one, the challenge was we couldn't be able to identify whether it was coming from which location, because most users disable their location feature. But most of these areas which were complaining about most of these things were in the central region, which were also perceived as the opposition stronghold. So, yeah, things like that. So you can also do other interesting things, like you want to find out the semantic orientation of a particular term. In this instance, we're looking at the presidential candidates. You want to see to what extent were these terms being used in positive and negative sense. You have things like that. So what we have talked about here is how you can be able to collect data from Twitter. And we also looked at this particular work, we're trying to look at as well. You can take it to another extent of finding out how the role of the media houses, especially this was elections. So you want to know what were they talking about, because most of these people are those who are driving a lot of content and discussion on the social media. These are just examples of tweets which were popular. Most of them really talking about the opposition leader who was arrested the same day of the elections. So we can also do sentiment analysis. You want to know what is the mood in your data. Term frequency and concurrencies. You want to know what are the frequent words and which words are appearing together often. Semantic orientation. You want to know how are these terms being used in a negative or positive sense. So, yes. In conclusion, data science techniques and social media can be used to describe real-life phenomenon. As we have been seeing for the last 3 days, and Twitter, such open media like Twitter, can be very interesting platforms for you to be able to carry out some research and find out how does the public perceive service, products, and public events like this. Yeah, so inferences from this data study can also be used in decision-making processes. And there are some tools that can help you to do some of this work, but most of them are expensive. You have to pay money for them. And the free versions that they give you can be limited. But there is an interesting tool called CATS. You can get on that link. You can be able to do some of days which you can be able to collect your data for free. The only problem, it only collects per Twitter account, so you won't be able to do things like hashtags, at least the last time that I checked. So you won't be able to have a lot to collect, but you can use that. I also put up something on my GitHub that you can, with some data and some notebooks, which you can be able to check and follow. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions.
Thank Thank you very much, and I'd like to congratulate you for your nice presentation. I have one question. After you have mined the data from Twitter, now you have the tweets in your machine. What algorithm, or how do you classify them as positive or negative? Or how do you classify the moods as surprise, joy, fear? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Now, there is a lexicon that's existing that some researchers put together with positive and negative words. So every time, first of all, when you collect your data, you have to first clean it. Remove, for example, remove things like stop words. Those are common words. Things like the, at. Get rid of those words and other things that you don't need. So you can be able to run every tweet that you have cleaned. Every single word you look, is it positive or is it negative? Okay, if it's positive, does it carry joy? Does it carry joy, happy? So every word gets a score for that. Every word gets a score. So at the end of the day, all the words in the tweet, you sum up the score and then you find out. Either you can do it two ways. You sum up to find out what was the sentiment in this tweet, or you can do it, you can sum up according to either angry, happy, joy. So every other time you look through a tweet, you populate those other columns. So at the end of the day, you can come up with other graph that we showed. So you just keep looping through every tweet, looking at a word. Is it positive, negative? Or if it's negative, is it anger? Is it dissatisfaction? So things like that. There are all the certain libraries that which can help you. The only other issue that we may have is that enough different contexts. You know? Like, for example, in Uganda, the way we talk English is different. So you may have to update those libraries with some localization.
Yeah. Actually, thank you so much for your presentation. My question actually looks to what has been your last sentence in answering his question, which is, like you said, there is the availability of a lexicon that you can compare against a sentence to score positive and negative words and neutral words. I'm just curious, have you ever tried to experiment with sentence structure, punctuation marks, and the use and positioning of different words to sort of classify, text data into different, sentiments?
With this particular work, the structure, I didn't follow much with the structure. So I did look at the effect of commas and the flow. Basically, I looked at term frequencies and concurrencies. So I didn't really get in deep to observe the structures of sentences and get in deeper. Probably that's something that we'll be able to carry on from here.
One more question in the back.
Change time.
Thanks, Isaac, for your presentation. So my question is a bit similar to his, but perhaps anyone in the crowd could answer. You've mentioned that you kind of just got rid of the stop words, which is something I've had someone else do when it comes to this kind of analysis. But I'm also wondering, doesn't that affect the actual context of the words, or of the entirety of the sentence that you're trying to analyze? Perhaps it's, or is there some literature that pretty much supports that agenda versus utilizing everything? Perhaps anyone is free to answer if they have the answer.
Yeah, probably the gurus in the house could say something. But maybe what I can just say, as the gurus prepare to say something. This is just, basically I was trying to simplify this work. That's why I got rid of the stop words. Just trying to reduce the dimension of your data. So, but now the gurus can say something. Dr. Ernest.
The gurus are silent.
Dr. Ernest is the question. Why do you, if you remove stop words from text, doesn't that reduce the quality of your work?
Okay, let me take a stab at that. Actually, stop words are essentially connectors and conjunctions that basically help you structure the content of your message. They don't have as much effect in the content of your message. In that it's the same way people can speak without using conjunctions, but you can still be able to infer to their content, and that sort of reduces their effect in the overall sentiment of the entire sentence. As a matter of fact, there is a study I think I read early this year that basically shows that as much as stop words are generally removed in sort of sentiment analysis where you compare positive and negative words, in situations where you don't do that, they actually don't have effects. And those situations where you don't do that use like natural language processing methodologies that so far haven't worked as best as comparing positive and negative words, but it's a very interesting, I feel like it's a very interesting space for research right now that a lot of people are looking into.
Oh, thank you.
And now we'll bring up Bukosi Marivate.